I often get asked the question, how did you start selling books and what motivated you? And it's kind of a long-winded answer, and it may sound a little bit mystical at the beginning, but bear with me here. So I was brought under severe conviction of sin when I was 14 years old. And I went to my dad's bookcase to try to get some relief. And I was scanning the books, and I came across, my dad's bookcase, by the way, was almost all Puritan books. I came across a book called The Life and Death of Mr. Badman by John Bunyan. And I thought, well, I'm a very bad young person, so that book should be for me. So I read through that book and many others in my dad's bookcase. But it took about 18 months before I really found total relief, and the burden of sin rolled off my back when I was 15. And much of the freedom I found in Christ actually came to me through the means of reading the Puritans. I read actually my dad's entire bookcase of Puritans. Every night I was reading from about 9 o'clock p.m. to midnight or later. And they just spoke to me, and they offered grace very freely, and they won me over, and I surrendered by the grace of God my entire life to Christ. And then about 6 months later, I just maybe turned 16. I had this strange conviction that I had to start passing these books out to other people. So I began with a local church. And I went to the local consistory and I said, I'm burdened. I want to start a church library. Well, they let me. I had 100 books, and they had 3 elders to approve them. And one elder approved all 100, one approved 95, and the other one approved 8, which was my dad. So I started a library with 8 books. And within 6 months, my dad approved all 100. And well, anyway, I spent my life savings at that point buying those 100 books and putting them in the library because I felt so strongly about getting good books in the hands of people. God wonderfully blessed those 100 books. And there were a few people that got converted. Other few people came to me and said, these books have really spoken to me. So one night I have this dream, a very strange dream. In my dream, I saw this sheet of paper with a return address called Bible Truth Books, Kalamazoo, Michigan. That's where I grew up. And in my dream, I saw the paper being turned over, and I saw this. Alexander, Archibald, Thoughts on Religious Experience, retail $10, our price $8. And I woke up from my dream. And I started thinking, you know what? This is not enough to just have a church library. I've got to start a business. So I went back to my local consistory and said, can I start a business of selling books? And they said, well, there's a guy in Grand Rapids, 50 miles away. He sells books, and we don't want you in competition with him. So you can do it with the same books you put in the library, but you've got to get his permission. So my brother and I drove up to Grand Rapids. We're outside of his house, and we're praying. We're actually weeping that this man would give us permission, not see us as competitive, but that we could sell books all around the world. So we tell him our vision. He's an old man. He's probably between 85 and 90 with long, white, flowing hair. And he's leaning forward, listening to us. We share our vision with him, and he goes, you boys want to sell Puritan books all around the world? May the whole world be your parish, he said. Godspeed. And we go, what? This is so easy. We thought he was going to be upset. We went back out in the car, and we just wept for the goodness of God, and came back and we started Bible Truth Books. And believe it or not, the first book list had just about 2 dozen books on it, just on one sheet of blue paper on both sides. And the top book alphabetically was Alexander Archibald, and the retail price really was $10, and we did really sell it for $8. So it's a really bizarre thing. But that's how I started selling books. And I did that until I was accepted into the ministry. So I did it for 5 years. And every Saturday night, we get all the young people from Kalamazoo to pack the books. And we pray earnestly, sometimes with tears, for a blessing on the books as they went out. And by the time I went to St. Catharines, Ontario, where I studied for the ministry and had to give Bible Truth books over to others, we were up to about, it wasn't big, but $100,000 or so of sales per year. Studied for 4 years. When I got installed as a minister in Sioux Center, Iowa, the denomination made me president of the book ministry because they saw my passion and love for books, I suppose. So I started working on that, and I built that up by the grace of God to maybe this between 250 and 300,000 sales a year. When I took it over, that was like $10,000. It was mainly just to denominational people. So I started building up a book list and so on, got it up to 5,000 names or so. And then there was, sadly, there was a split in the denomination, and we were forced to start a new denomination, and we lost all the books, even including the ones I wrote, because all the books belonged to that denomination. Well, I couldn't imagine not selling books. To me, this is a primary means of grace. So I determined to start something called Reformation Heritage Books. And I said, this time I'm not going to tie it to the new denomination, but I'm going to have a board of interdenominational people. And that's how I set it up. So I started out very small, and with maybe 5 board members. And I never dreamed that God would bless it the way he has. And by the time I turned over my presidency to David Woolen as a CEO, and I now have become board chairman a couple of years ago, we were selling millions of dollars worth of books a year. And now it's even much more. And I am just thrilled with Reformation Heritage Books. I love it. I've always loved selling books. It's just, I can't tell you, but thousands of letters have come my way over the years of people who've been moved by a certain book, people who've been converted under a certain book. It's just such a rewarding ministry. And what's really exciting me now is that a lot of our books are being translated into a whole number of different languages, dozens of different languages, and people are reading these books all around the world in their own languages. The future for Reformation Heritage Books, which I also set up as a nonprofit organization, is awesome. Under David Woolen and Steve Renkema and other leaders here, this book ministry is being ramped up, and we don't see an end in sight. Everybody's talking about, well, nobody reads books anymore. I think that's not true. You put solid, biblical, reformed, experiential, confessional, practical books in the hands of Christians. They read. These books will grip them, particularly the Puritans. We've seen an expansion all over the world of good, solid, biblical reading. So I love going to conferences and selling books from the pulpit after I speak. I always do it right after I speak, and people can go straight to the book table and buy. And that gives me so much personal reward. I can't put it into words. It means more to me than if you gave me $10 million. I just love seeing people walk away with a stack of books that could change and transform their lives, or make them, or cause them to grow in grace. And I often say from the pulpit, conferences are great. I love to speak at conferences. I love to interact with people. But my favorite part is being behind the book table, selling books, talking to people, telling them why this particular book can meet their particular spiritual need that they're asking about. And I say to them, maybe the most important reason why you came to this conference is that you're taking these books home with you. You'll forget the addresses at the conference, but the books will go with you. And as you read them, God can do wonderful things through them. So at Reformation Heritage Books, we only publish books that are true to the scriptures, true to the Reformed faith, and we specialize in books that are experiential, that is, they speak to the heart and to the life and practical. And we also specialize in children's books without pictures of Jesus in them, because we don't want to break the second commandment. And we do two things, well, really three things. We do what every book publisher told me could never be done when we first started. We're both a book distributor and we're a book publisher. And they all told me back in the 1994 or 5 when I started Reformation Heritage Books, you can't do both. You either got to publish books or you got to distribute them. I said, no, we're a nonprofit. I'm not interested in money. We are going to do both because there's a lot of good books from a lot of publishers and we're not competitors with any of them. We want to promote every good book in the world. So what we do is we cherry pick from about 70 publishers around the world, the best, solid, reformed, biblical, experiential stuff they have. We bring them in. And so right now we've got 7,500 books that we carry. And we ourselves do an average of 40 to 50 books a year. This year, we're actually doing 57, but it includes 72 volumes because we're doing some complete work. So this is our highest year ever, 72 new volumes. So we're doing both ministries rolled into one. And then at the same time, because we're nonprofit, what we do is we also are intent on sending crates of books to Africa because the average minister there has only 10 books in his library, and we want to boost that up. If a minister in Africa gets a book, you know how he feels? A good book? He feels like he got a new car. I mean, it's just so great. The smile on his face is overwhelmingly big, and they send their pictures back after they get our books, and they're just overwhelmed with free books. So why would you want to get involved with Reformation Heritage Books? Well, for two reasons. First of all, we want to present to you that we are, in a way, a one-stop bookshop for all things that are biblical, reformed, experiential, confessional, and practical. If that's what you're interested in, if you love the teaching of the Reformers and the Puritans and also contemporary writers that are in that vein, we aim to carry everything for you. So if you're biblical and reformed, you can fully trust all 7,500 books that we carry. You don't have to wonder, is this book sound or not, like so many other book lists. So that's unique. That's where our niche is. We sell books that are reliable, and you can trust Reformation Heritage Books. In fact, if you ever find something wrong in a book, you just call and write us, and we'll look at it and we'll say, hey, you know what? You're right. And we remove the book. But I personally approve every single book that goes into RHB. And to me, that's a sacred part of my calling. I don't want to sell anybody a book that's not thoroughly sound. So a one-stop bookshop. And secondly, affordable prices. We're cheaper than anyone else because we're nonprofit. We can afford to go very low. But sometimes it also means we need donations. And that's a third thing. Donations for the books for Africa, but also donations for big things that we do. Regular one-volume works, we can pretty much handle. And we'll make enough money to barely pay the employees, come out even. But for big works, we need donations. And so I have in my hand right here, Reformation Heritage Books, a catalog. And this catalog just deals with multi-volume sets. And these are the kinds of things we need donations for. Let me just read a few of them to you. We just did the 12 volumes of the works of Thomas Boston. That's great. It's selling well. But we got a donor to actually support 50%. That's often what we do. We say if we can just get 50% of the startup costs, then we can handle the other 50% and come out okay. Here's the 4 volumes of Richard Baxter. We're hoping to do that this winter. So we're looking for a donor for that, for example. And here's a big one, 62 volumes of Spurgeon's sermons. This project alone costs somewhere close to $1 million to produce 1,500 sets of Spurgeon's 62, 63 volumes of sermons. So we could really use help on that one. And then the works of Samuel Rutherford. This is the most expensive of all because we have to translate a lot of books from Latin. Did you know Samuel Rutherford has a systematic theology that's never been translated into English? So we're doing the complete works of this godly Scottish divine in 22 volumes. So this is really exciting to me. I've fed off of Samuel Rutherford's letters and other books like his Trial and Triumph of Faith for many, many years. So we're looking for donations for that. Then Petrus van Maastricht, his 7-volume systematic theology. We actually have 4 volumes done. We're translating the whole thing from Latin. You know what Jonathan Edwards said about this set? He said it's the most valuable thing ever written in the history of mankind, except for the Bible. This is a gold mine. And right now, financially, the first 4 volumes are all paid for. I'm working on editing volume 5 right now. And we do have enough to cover volume 5, but we need some donations for 6 and 7. Here's another thing we're working on, Jonathan Edwards' New Testament commentary. This is really exciting. Combing all the works of Edwards, any comment he makes on any text, and we also are including the 30-some volumes of Edwards that have never been printed. They're just in typewritten form. And we're extracting all those comments, plugging them into the text, and doing a New Testament commentary by Jonathan Edwards. All the comments he makes on various New Testament texts. So the first volume, an editor has just presented it to us. So we're just at the beginning of this project. We need quite a bit of help here as well. The complete works of Thomas Watson. Isn't it amazing? Watson, when I was a young man, was my favorite Puritan for a while, and no one's ever done his complete works, ever. So, and there's some books of Watson that have never been printed yet. So we're doing that in 7 major volumes. And that they will come out from 2025 to 2028. And then my favorite Puritan at this point in my life, I've changed different points in my life, the complete works of Anthony Burgess. Chad Van Dixhorn is going to be editing these. It's going to be 14 volumes. Burgess he's got it all. He's a great exegete. He's great in experiential emphasis and practical emphasis. He's got lots of wonderful books on how to live the Christian life. 2025 to 2029 for this series of books. And then we're doing a 2-volume William J. morning exercises and evening exercises. And the complete works of Matthew Henry. Well, you can get that right now, but it's very small print and it's not been edited, hard to read. And we're doing it in a beautiful edition with editorial footnotes, explaining who the guys are that he's talking about, etc., and including works of Henry that had been located since his original works were collected. So this should be coming out in 2025, looking for donations there. And then we're doing the works of John Cotton, the New England Puritan. This is a major work of 6 volumes. And then we're doing the reprints of William Bates, which is 4 volumes, and Edward Reynolds, 2 more Puritans, 6 volumes. And then the last 2 pages deal with the 4 sets that we've already done: the works of Thomas Goodwin, the works of William Perkins, which is now complete, works of John Trapp, and the Christian's Reasonable Service in 4 volumes by Johannes A. Brockel. So those are all done and paid for. One beautiful thing about these sets of books is that we are doing them in very quality fashion. Once they're printed, they will be with us for centuries, and you can pass them on to your great-great-grandchildren. And hopefully God will use books like these for your family from generation to generation, fulfilling his promise in Psalm 128. Thou shalt see thy children's children, and blessing upon Israel. If you are interested in contributing to Reformation Heritage Books to help us finance these major works that people could have and read and benefit from some of the best biblical Reformed writers in all of church history, please feel free to join us and partner with us. We'd be most grateful. So I hope you found this interesting to hear a little bit about the history and development of Reformation Heritage Books. Our passion is to bring solid Reformed books around the world, ultimately in hundreds of languages, and to millions of people, and that God would use these books to transform tens of thousands of lives. So please join us in this ministry. If you have means to help us, we need you, and God can bless it to the ends of the earth. God bless you.